Have you ever wondered what makes someone jump into danger when everyone else runs away? If you enjoyed the story, please like, share, and subscribe. We would love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below because we love hearing from our viewers around the world. The sun painted the valley gold every morning, but the beauty could not hide the empty stomachs or patch the holes in worn-out shoes. In this quiet place where dust danced with wind, children played games that cost nothing and dreamed dreams that seemed impossible. Among them walked a girl named Amara, 12 years old, with eyes that sparkled like stars even though her dress had more patches than original cloth. Amara lived with her grandmother in a tiny house made of mud and hope. The roof leaked when rain fell. The walls had cracks wide enough to see through. But inside that humble home lived more love than some mansions would ever know. Every morning, Amara woke before the sun, climbed over the hills. She fetched water from the stream, walking barefoot on stones that had worn smooth from 1,000 feet before hers. She swept the floor with a broom made from dry grass. She smiled at her grandmother, even when her stomach growled louder than an angry dog. Her grandmother was sick, very sick, the kind of sick that steals strength day by day, like a thief taking everything bit by bit. Medicine cost money they did not have. Food was scarce. Some nights, Amara went to bed with only hope in her belly, wondering if tomorrow might bring something better. But she never complained. Not once. Instead, she sang songs her mother had taught her before sickness took her too. She told her grandmother stories about the future, about the day when things would change, when sunshine would mean more than just light. On a hill above the valley stood a mansion, so big it looked like a castle from fairy tales. White walls gleamed in the sunlight. Gardens bloomed with flowers that seemed to glow. Fountains splashed water that sparkled like diamonds. Inside lived a man named Mr. Davidson, a billionaire whose money could buy anything except the one thing he wanted most. His heart was broken into 1,000,000 pieces that no amount of gold could glue back together. Mr. Davidson had lost his wife 2 years ago. She had been his everything, his reason for smiling, his partner in all things good. When she died, colors faded from his world. Food lost its taste. Music became noise. Even his baby son, little Thomas, could not pull him from the darkness that had swallowed his joy. He hired a nanny named Mrs. Chun to care for Thomas because he felt too broken to be the father the boy deserved. He buried himself in work, in numbers and deals, trying to forget that money meant nothing when love disappeared. The mansion had everything. Rooms filled with toys Thomas never played with. A kitchen stocked with food that could feed the entire valley. Closets bursting with clothes that cost more than most families earned in a year. Yet despite all this wealth, the house felt cold, empty, like a beautiful shell with nothing alive inside. Mr. Davidson walked through his halls like a ghost, seeing nothing, feeling less. Amara knew about the mansion on the hill. Everyone in the valley did. They whispered about the sad billionaire who never smiled, who never came down to the village, who lived behind walls that kept the world out and kept his pain locked in. Some people were jealous of his wealth. Others felt sorry for him. Amara simply wondered if rich people cried the same way poor people did, if tears knew the difference between silk pillows and straw mats. Every afternoon, Amara walked through the valley looking for work. She offered to carry water for the elderly. She helped farmers pick vegetables for a handful of coins or a few scraps of food. She never begged, though hunger sat like a rock in her stomach. Pride kept her back straight even when exhaustion made her legs shake. Her grandmother had taught her that dignity was something no one could steal, that being poor did not mean being worthless. The valley had an old well near the edge of the village. It was ancient, built by ancestors whose names have been forgotten by time. Once, it had given life-giving water to everyone. Now it stood abandoned, covered by rotting wooden boards, surrounded by tall grass and warnings. Parents told their children to stay away. The well was deep, they said, dangerous, dark, a place where light went to die and sounds echoed forever. The boards were weak, ready to break under any weight. One wrong step and a person would fall into darkness, so complete that rescue would be impossible. On this particular afternoon, the sun burned bright and hot. Amara had been working since dawn, helping Mrs. Okafor wash clothes by the stream. Her back ached. Her fingers were wrinkled like raisins from the water. But she had earned enough for rice and a little medicine for her grandmother. She walked toward home, barefoot as always, her earnings tied carefully in a cloth at her waist. Above her on the hill, Mrs. Chun had taken little Thomas outside for fresh air. The boy was 2 years old, curious about everything, fearless in the way only children can be. He toddled across the lawn, chasing butterflies that danced just beyond his reaching fingers. Mrs. Chun watched him, but for just a moment, she looked away to answer her phone. It was her sister calling from far away. She turned her back for only seconds. Those seconds changed everything. Thomas saw a bright bird and followed it. His little legs carried him faster than Mrs. Chun realized. He wandered through a gap in the hedge, down a path that led away from the mansion grounds, toward the edge where the valley began. The bird flew ahead, leading him like a colorful guide. Thomas giggled and stumbled forward, not understanding danger, not knowing fear. The old well waited in the tall grass like a sleeping monster. Thomas reached the wooden boards that covered the well. They looked like a floor to him, solid and safe. He stepped onto them, his small feet pressing down. The ancient wood groaned, cracked. The sound split the afternoon silence like thunder. Mrs. Chun heard it and turned around. Her phone fell from her hand. Her scream cut through the air sharp enough to slice the sky. Thomas crashed through the rotting boards and disappeared into the darkness below. Mrs. Chen's scream echoed across the valley like a siren. People working in their gardens looked up. Farmers dropped their tools. Children stopped playing. Everyone heard that sound, the kind of sound that turns blood cold and makes hearts forget how to beat properly. It was a scream of pure terror, the cry of someone watching the worst thing imaginable happen right before their eyes. Amara was walking home when she heard it. She stopped. Her body knew before her mind understood that something terrible had happened. She turned toward the sound and saw Mrs. Chun running, stumbling, falling to her knees near the old well. Other people began running too, rushing from every direction like ants when their hill is disturbed. Within moments, a crowd gathered around the broken boards, staring down into the blackness. From deep below came a sound that made everyone's skin crawl. A baby crying. Little Thomas had fallen into the well, and his frightened wails rose up from the depths like ghosts. The well was at least 30 feet deep, maybe more. At the bottom, cold water waited, dark and still. The walls were slippery stone, covered in moss and slime from years of dampness. There was no ladder, no easy way down, no easy way back up. Mrs. Chun sobbed, calling Thomas's name over and over. Her hands shook as she reached toward the hole, as if she could somehow stretch her arms long enough to pull him out. Other villagers gathered around, their faces painted with horror and helplessness. Everyone talked at once. Someone suggested getting rope. Another person said they should call for help. An old man shook his head and muttered that the well was too dangerous, that the walls would crumble if anyone tried to climb down. Fear froze them all like statues. They stood there, looking down, listening to Thomas cry, wanting to help but not knowing how, afraid to act, afraid of what might happen if they tried. The baby's cries grew weaker, more desperate. He was cold, probably hurt, definitely terrified. Time was running out like sand through fingers, and everyone knew it, but no one moved. Amara pushed through the crowd. She was smaller than most of them, skinnier, younger, but she moved with purpose, elbowing past people until she reached the edge. She looked down into darkness and saw nothing but black. But she heard Thomas. She heard him calling for help in the only way a baby knows how. And something inside her chest, something stronger than fear, louder than doubt, told her what she had to do. "I can go down," she said. The crowd turned to look at her. Some people laughed, not meanly but nervously, the way people do when they hear something that seems impossible. "You? A little girl? What could you do?" Mrs. Chin looked at her, with eyes full of tears and hope mixed together like oil and water. An old woman grabbed Amar's arm and said, "Child, you will die down there. The walls are slippery. The water is deep. You cannot swim and carry a baby at the same time." Amara pulled her arm free gently. She looked at the woman and said, But if I do nothing, he will die for sure. If I try, maybe we both live. Maybe is better than never. Before anyone could stop her, before her own fear could change her mind, Amara sat on the edge of the broken well. Her legs dangled into darkness. Her heart hammered against her ribs like it wanted to escape. She had never done anything like this before. She had never been this scared. But she thought about her grandmother, about all the times they had nothing but still shared what little they had. She thought about how love means doing the hard thing when the hard thing is the right thing. She pushed off and dropped into the well. The fall felt like flying and drowning at the same time. Air rushed past her face. Darkness swallowed her whole. She hit the water hard, so hard it knocked the breath from her lungs. Cold stabbed her skin like 1,000 frozen needles. She went under, down into water, so dark she could not tell which way was up. Her lungs screamed for air. Panic grabbed her throat. For a terrible moment, she thought she had made a horrible mistake, that she would die here in this forgotten place, and no one would ever know she tried. But then her feet touched the muddy bottom. She pushed up, broke the surface, gasped for air that tasted like rust and old stone. Her eyes adjusted to the dim light, filtering down from above. She heard Thomas crying nearby, saw his small shape floating in the water, held up by some miracle, or maybe his puffy clothes acting like a life jacket. Amara swam toward him. The water was deeper than she was tall, and she had to work hard to keep her head above the surface. Her arms felt heavy. Her dress, soaked through, dragged her down like it was trying to pull her to the bottom. But she reached Thomas and wrapped one arm around him, pulling him close to her chest. He coughed and sputtered and cried harder when he felt her touch, but she held him tight. "I got you," she whispered. "I got you, little one. You are safe now." But they were not safe. Not yet. Looking up, the opening of the well seemed impossibly far away. Faces peered down, small as coins, backlit by the sun. Voices called down to her, but she could barely hear them over the echo of water dripping in Thomas's frightened cries. The walls rose straight up, slick with moss, offering no handholds, no way to climb. Amara treaded water with one arm, while holding Thomas with the other. Her legs kicked hard to keep them both afloat. Already her muscles burned. Already exhaustion crept into her bones like cold fog. She knew she could not last long. The water was stealing her warmth, her strength, her hope, but she refused to let go of Thomas. She would hold him until her last breath if that was what it took. Above, someone finally thought clearly. A man named Mr. Ojo ran to his house and returned with rope. He tied one end to a thick post and threw the other end down into the well. It splashed into the water near Amara. She grabbed it with her free hand, wrapping it around her wrist once, twice, holding on with everything she had left. "Pull!" someone shouted from above. The rope went tight. Amara felt herself being lifted, inch by painful inch, but it was too hard. She was holding Thomas. She was soaking wet. She was small, and the rope was rough, and her hand began to slip. She looked down at the dark water below, and then up at Thomas's face. He had stopped crying. His eyes were wide, trusting her completely, believing she would save him because that was what heroes did. She adjusted her grip, wrapped her legs around the rope, held Thomas against her body with both arms now. The rope burned her skin. Her muscles screamed, but she held on. The people above pulled harder, working together, adding their strength to hers. Slowly, painfully, Amara and Thomas rose up to the darkness toward the light. The walls scraped her shoulders. Slime smeared across her arms. Once, her foot slipped and she swung sideways, slamming into the stone. Pain exploded through her body, but she did not let go, could not let go, would not let go. Thomas depended on her. That was all that mattered. Up and up they went. The circle of light above grew bigger, brighter. She heard voices more clearly now, people shouting encouragement, praying, crying with relief. Her arms felt like they might fall off. Her lungs burned for air. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision. But she could see the top now, so close, almost there. Hands reached down. Strong hands. Many hands. They grabbed her arms, her shoulders, her dress. They pulled her up and over the edge. She collapsed on the grass, still holding Thomas tight against her chest. For a moment, everything went quiet. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then Thomas coughed, sputtered, started crying again. That beautiful, angry, alive sound of a baby who was scared but safe. Mrs. Chin fell beside them, taking Thomas from Amara's arms, sobbing thank you over and over like a prayer. The crowd erupted in cheers. People clapped and hugged each other and wiped tears from their faces. Amara lay on the grass, unable to move, barely able to breathe. Her whole body shook, her vision blurred. She had done it. She had actually done it. The impossible thing that everyone said could not be done. She had jumped into darkness and come back with light. Then the world tilted sideways and everything faded to black. Amara woke up in a bed softer than clouds. White sheets surrounded her, so clean they seemed to glow. Sunlight poured through tall windows, painting everything gold. For a confused moment, she thought she had died and gone to heaven. Then she heard voices, felt a warm hand holding hers, and realized she was very much alive. Her grandmother sat beside the bed, tears streaming down her weathered face. But these were happy tears, grateful tears, the kind that wash away worry and leave joy behind. When she saw Amara's eyes open, she squeezed her hand and whispered, "My brave girl, my precious, foolish, wonderful girl." Amara tried to sit up, but her body protested. Every muscle ached. Her arms felt like they belonged to someone else. Bruises painted her skin purple and blue. But she was alive. And suddenly she remembered Thomas, the well, the darkness, the climb. Her heart jumped. "The baby," she croaked, her voice rough as sandpaper. "Safe," her grandmother said, smiling through tears. "Because of you, he is safe." The door opened and a man walked in. Amara had never seen him up close before, but she knew who he was. Mr. Davidson, the billionaire from the mansion on the hill. He looked different than she had imagined, smaller somehow, despite his expensive clothes. His eyes were red like he had been crying. He walked slowly to her bedside and knelt down so his face was level with hers. "You saved my son," he said, and his voice cracked on the word son. "You jumped into that well when everyone else, including me, just stood there frozen. A little girl with nothing showed more courage than a man with everything." He paused, struggling with emotions too big for words. "I was not there when Thomas fell. I was in my office, hiding from the world, drowning in my own pain. By the time I heard the screams and ran down, you had already jumped. I watched them pull you both up. I watched you hold my son like he was the most precious thing in the world, even though you had never met him, even though saving him could have cost you your life." Tears rolled down Mr. Davidson's cheeks. He did not wipe them away. "I have been so lost since my wife died. I forgot how to live. I forgot that love is not about holding on to what we lost, but about protecting what we still have. You reminded me, a child reminded me. You showed me what it means to be truly wealthy." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded paper. "This is the deed to a new house, bigger than the one you live in now, with a real roof and strong walls and windows that close properly. It is yours and your grandmother's." Amara's grandmother gasped. Amara just stared, not understanding how life could change so fast, how morning could bring hunger and afternoon could bring miracles. But Mr. Davidson was not finished. "I want to do more. For you, for this village. I have spent years collecting money, like it could fill the hole in my heart. It cannot, but maybe it can fill holes in roofs. Maybe it can build wells that do not crumble, schools where children learn, a clinic where grandmothers get medicine they need." He looked directly into Amar's eyes. "I want to help. Will you help me? Will you show me what this village needs? You know things I never see from my mansion on the hill. You know which families struggle, which children go hungry, which dreams seem impossible. Together, we can make things better." Amara did not know what to say. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Her grandmother squeezed her hand tighter and nodded, giving permission, giving blessing. "Yes," Amara finally whispered. "Yes, I will help." The weeks that followed felt like living in a dream. Amara healed slowly, her bruises fading from purple to yellow to gone. She moved into a new house with her grandmother, and they cried happy tears the first night. They slept under a roof that did not leak. Her grandmother got medicine that made her strong again, brought color back to her cheeks, put light back in her eyes. But the real magic happened in the village. Mr. Davidson kept his promise. He did not just throw money at problems and walk away. He listened. He learned. He rolled up his expensive sleeves and worked beside the villagers, building new wells and safe places where children could play nearby without fear. They constructed a school with books and desks and a teacher who made learning feel like adventure. A small clinic opened, staffed with a kind doctor who charged prices people could actually pay. Amara became Mr. Davidson's guide and, without anyone planning it, became something more. She visited the mansion often to check on Thomas, who squealed with delight every time he saw her. He called her Mara, because Thomas was the full name that was too big for his little mouth. She played with him, read him stories, held him when nightmares made him cry. And slowly, carefully, Mr. Davidson learned to be a father again, learned to laugh again, learned that loving someone new did not mean forgetting someone lost. One afternoon, as Amara pushed Thomas on a swing in the mansion garden, Mr. Davidson watched him with a peace he had not felt in years. "You know," he said softly, "Thomas calls you his sister now. Would you mind if it was true? Not just in his heart, but on paper? I want to adopt you, Amara, make you part of our family officially. You and your grandmother can live here, or in your new house, or anywhere you choose. But I want you to know you belong with us." Amara stopped pushing the swing. She looked at Mr. Davidson, at Thomas giggling in the seat, at the mansion that had once seemed cold but now felt warm. She thought about her grandmother, about her mother who had died, about all the love that had been lost and found again. "Family is not just about living in the same house," she said carefully. "It is about being there when someone needs you. It is about jumping into wells even when you are scared. You already feel like family, Mr. Davidson. You and Thomas both. Call me Father," he said, "if you want to." Amara smiled. "Father," she said, testing the word, finding it fit perfectly. News of the rescue spread far beyond the valley. Reporters came with cameras and questions. They wanted to interview the brave girl who risked everything. Newspapers printed her story. Television shows invited her to talk. People called her a hero, a miracle, an inspiration. But Amara stayed humble. She told everyone the same thing. "I am not special. I just did what anyone should do when someone needs help. Every life is worth saving. Rich or poor, big or small, known or unknown. Every single life matters." The village changed in ways both big and small. The new wells provided clean water. The school filled with eager students. The clinic healed the sick. But the biggest change was invisible. People started helping each other more, sharing more, caring more. They had learned from Amara that courage grows where love is planted, that true wealth has nothing to do with bank accounts and everything to do with open hearts. Mr. Davidson commissioned a statue to be placed in the village square. It showed a girl holding a baby, rising up from darkness toward light. Beneath it, words were carved into stone. "Every life is worth saving." Children played around it. Old people sat near it and remembered. Visitors came to see it and left inspired. But Amara herself was the real living legacy. She grew up splitting her time between two homes, two families, two worlds that had once seemed impossibly far apart. She studied hard at the new school and later at universities far away. She became a doctor, choosing to heal people the way others had healed her grandmother. She never forgot where she came from, never forgot the day she jumped into darkness. Thomas grew up calling Amara his sister, and meaning it with his whole heart. He told everyone who would listen about the day she saved his life, even though he was too young to remember it himself. The story became part of him, shaped who he became. He learned from her that real strength is not about muscles or money, but about the choice to help when help is needed. Years later, on the anniversary of the rescue, the whole village gathered at the old well. It had been made safe now, converted into a memorial garden with flowers and benches. Amara stood there with her father, Mr. Davidson, whose hair had gone gray, but whose eyes had never been brighter. Thomas stood beside her, now a young man who volunteered at the clinic she had inspired. Her grandmother, ancient now but still smiling, sat in a place of honor. As the sun began to set, painting the valley gold just like it had on that fateful day, Amara spoke to the crowd. I was just a hungry girl with holes in my dress when I jumped into that well. I was scared. I thought I might die. But I jumped anyway because love told me to. Love is always stronger than fear. Love is always braver than doubt. Love is the reason we are all here, together, proof that one moment of courage can change everything forever. The crowd applauded, but not for long. There was no need for noise when hearts were already full. As twilight settled over the valley, people hugged each other, helped each other, loved each other. The mansion on the hill glowed with warm light, no longer separate from the village but part of it, connected by invisible threads of compassion and community. Amara looked at her father and smiled. She looked at Thomas and saw the future. She looked at her grandmother and saw the past. And she understood, finally and fully, that the well had not been a place of danger at all. It had been a doorway, a passage from one kind of life to another, a dark moment that led to endless light. Every life is worth saving. That was the creed they lived by now. That was the truth Amara had proven with her leap. And in the years that followed, in the children who grew strong, in the sick who healed, in the hungry who were fed, in the lonely who found family, that truth echoed on and on and on. The girl who had nothing became the girl who gave everything. And in giving, she received more than she ever dreamed possible. Love multiplied. Joy doubled. Hope spread like sunlight, touching every corner of the valley, warming every heart, proving once and forever that heroes are made not by wealth but by the willingness to jump into darkness when someone needs saving. And they all lived, not happily ever after, but fully ever after, living each day with purpose, with kindness, with the knowledge that one person's courage can heal an entire world. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Stories like this remind us what truly matters in life. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below because we love hearing from you and your own stories of courage and kindness. Together, we can spread hope and inspire others to be brave when bravery is needed most.